Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Health Literacy Show with Dr. Baruch and Heleese. And welcome to a adventure into the realm and into the world of health and wellness from a Jamaican perspective. We've got a brother on board with us today who's going to be sharing with us the science of health and wellness as is understood and has been understood and practiced for hundreds of years there, if not thousands of years. You know, we reflect back on, we use these history books as references in order to determine time and space and when things happen, and we have to oftentimes be careful how much we rely on them as a reasonable source. But anyway, in any event, we've got a brother on board with us today who's going to talk to us about health and wellness, and he's going to share with us his thoughts about what it is that is challenging us and what it is that we have to do in order to overcome many of these challenges that we have. Not only here in the United States of America, but even when I've gone down and visited the islands, I'm seeing the very same illnesses that are affecting us here in the States are beginning to overwhelmingly so impact the island. And I remember being in Jamaica maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and everyone was commenting on the levels of diabetes and how diabetes was on the rise. And I knew, because I saw Crackdonald's and Murder King and Taco Hell and Wind Disease and Chokers and all the rest of those characters were down there. I knew what brought it on, along with, of course, the health department there in on the island becoming more I guess in alignment with the United States supposed healthcare system that is vaccinating us and injecting us and inoculating us with all kinds of crap. And we wonder why all of a sudden so many things happen, just like all of a sudden, you know, we have personality changes. If I could go down that road for a whole show, so I won't go into it. But I can tell you now, a lot of the things that we see happening that we think are just people being crazy, they aren't in fact people being crazy. If you can inject crazy into somebody. So we're not gonna belabor the point. We're gonna drive right in. We've got brother Rofeh Ben Tsedek, renowned raw food chef, herbalist, representing Medical Abarim, a system of healing. Right now, he is coming on board with us from the wonderful and beautiful island of Jamaica. Brother Ben.
Yes, Dr. Baruch.
How are you, sir?
I am excellent. That
is great to hear. How's the weather down there?
The weather is sunny, you know, fresh air, fruit trees, birds, cows, goats. I'm in the country.
Right. Well, I'm envious because I wish I was there. But I'm excited and glad to know that you're there representing and soaking up all that weather and all that spirit and all that culture, and that you all are doing everything you can to maintain your health and wellness on that side of the world, because it's real. Jamaica is one of the most beautiful islands I have been to, but I see the transition. I see the transformation of that island, and hopefully those that are there, the Maroons that are there, are going to hold on to that culture and hold on to that identity and hold on to those elements that represent the paradise that we've all known as Jamaica.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So
absolutely,
we're going to dive right in, Brother Rofeh Ben Tsedek, and we're going to start a conversation about health and wellness. Now, you and I both know that health and wellness has become a major issue in our community. and none of us, or I can't say none, but there are not many of us that are reflecting on it and dealing with how this is just not possible, and you might not be old enough to know, but you look back at, the history of the island and the people on the island. They weren't sick like they are today 30 and 40 years ago, no. And maybe let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's going on there on the island, because you have a microcosm of what it is that has happened here on a much larger level in the United States of America. You got a chance to look at it through almost a microscope, because there's a controlled group of people that all of a sudden started having health challenges as they adopted or transitioned or became or started or stopped or whatever it was. So let's jump in. What is it that happened in your estimation? When did it happen? And what were the outcomes? Again, we want to know what happened on the front end that caused the outcomes. When did it happen, and what were the outcomes? Go for it.
Well, in my research, I've begun to realize that the compromise with our health actually started in Africa.
Okay.
And it only continued in the islands to make it simple, in that once the people begin to change the food, to start to domesticate certain wild plants that have a higher vibration, then you also change the genetics, the health, the behavior of the people. So when you look in West Africa, where a lot of us came out of, you see that the food that we were eating, certain things like cassava and so forth. When you do a deeper research, you realize those plants are modified. So updating to Jamaica now, I grew up where my father, he was a farmer, and they grow a lot of yams and cassavas and things of that nature. But despite they eating what we would consider natural ground food, they might avert certain sickness. It might take much longer for it to come on, but eventually they end up with these arthritis, asthma. My grandfather in 1950 something died from asthma, and what was he eating? It was some of the same compromised food that we brought from West Africa. So, I just came off of a conversation with my father, and I said to him, I'm bringing you some herbs. And he started to get scared. So obviously now he has been convinced, or our people here now, the older generation and the young now, have been convinced that they need to resort to pharmaceutical as opposed to the herbal knowledge that we had. There was a time when you going back to school, you had to do a washout. There were certain herbs that was administered to every children. Now when we check that out today, non-existence. People no longer everybody is most people resorting to pharmaceutical. They're no longer confident in the plant. And one of the reasons is because the knowledge, the science, the biochemistry is no longer there.
Right. Absolutely. And what do you think it was that crept in that caused us to lose that level of confidence that we once had? What is it that, because you think about Jamaican and the Jamaican culture, the Jamaican spirit is pretty strong. Out of many of the islands, you all are considered a more aggressive people, and that has to do with your experience and what you had to do. Absolutely. And again, what you went through. So what is it that brought about this breakdown where it had to be obvious to the seers? There had to be seers down there. There had to be men that were and women that were there that were identifying what was taking place as it was taking place and causing the people to then wake up and say, ho, 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 or at least encouraging the people to wake up. So
see what happened, during the Maroon Wars, they rely upon herbal science. You're isolated in the bush, you fighting the British, you only have one resort: plants, herbs. You understand?
Right.
But one of the things we fail to realize is that this is a protracted war. Your enemy is constantly studying you and updating their technology, you know, in terms of how to control your thinking. So when we look, I'm going to make an analogy here for my people who are in the church and so forth. When you read the story about the Philistine taking the Ark of the Covenant corresponds to your nervous system, your brain, your higher brain centers, right? Okay. And that's a metaphor. So in contemporary time, they have hijacked our nervous system, our higher brain centers, and are now inundating us with how to think. And the older generation never really updated their technology to become more sophisticated in transferring the information to the preceding generations, you know?
Okay.
And that is what is leading to this, what you call this disconnect. Because when you look in Jamaica and you elsewhere, you see Pepsi, you see Coca-Cola, right? And all of these foods of their acidic nature, they attack the nervous system. Now the nervous system carries what? Information, right? To tell you what to do, the hormones production. So once all of those systems are being hijacked, then you can't no longer think or function how you're supposed to. So they're using food to destroy the Ark of the Covenant, the hypothalamus, the pineal, etc., etc., the nervous system in general, or you'd say the endocrine.
Yeah, and the work that the research that you're doing, is that research that is local there to Jamaica, or where are you getting this information that is giving you these findings?
All right, where am I getting these information? Now, one of the things, I must say this, Dr. Baruch, that I am a byproduct of your inspiration. I remember if I recall, at like about 15 years old, I heard you on the radio, 15, 16, you know, and you changed my diet, and I came and worked for you, and you told me, don't leave this, just stay with me, and one day you're going to do great things. You will do your own health store, etc. And I'm saying that to say I have been building on the foundation you gave me. And in building on the information that I'm now extracting, remember, you introduced me to Hebrewism. And when I study Hebrew now, I start to find out that a lot of the concepts in the Bible actually ties into what you call medical Qigong, or Chinese medicine, in terms of the diagnostic system. So for instance, look in the Bible, metaphor. Whenever there's a sacrifice in the Bible, the priest, who was the doctor, would always burn the kidneys and do what? Clean the fats from around the liver. What is the message? Chinese medicine teach you, whenever somebody have a problem, you check the mother and the daughter, the liver and the kidney. It's always an issue with those two organs, because they are the major filtration points, you know, in the body. Right. So when I do a comparative study between Hebrewism and Chinese medicinal approach, I realize that everything is in the Bible is really about medicine, natural healing. It's metaphors. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the ways I'm extracting this information out, as well as fusing it with medical science. Right. You know, because medical science, in truth, substantiate a lot of this.
Yeah. Okay. And Ben, you know, I'm thankful. I remember those days. I remember when we first crossed paths, and you were a youngster. What were you, about 18 or 19 then, Ben?
17.
Okay, 17 years old, and we were there working on trying to build everlasting life down on Georgia Avenue, and you were such an essential part of that, and I'm so thankful for you, you know, being able to support that vision, the vision that I had, that if we don't feed ourselves, you know, if we're not working to feed ourselves, then we can't be serious about any war. We can't be serious about warfare.
Absolutely.
If we're not serious about taking out of the hands of our identified, qualified enemy, we can't allow him to feed us if we truly believe that he is and represents an enemy. So
absolutely,
Ben, there's an approach that you take to wellness that's a little different than your traditional naturopath or your traditional natural healer or natural educator. And give me some background on that. Give me the roots of where that comes from, and again, tying that into, all of the aspects, be it food or be it the energy centers in the universe or in the body. Let's hear the different approach that you take as compared to just going to somebody who's going to say you need to eat healthy. Mm-hmm.
All right, let me show you the approach. I can recall we have a shared mentor, and in one of his messages he said, we must not take the Most High name in vain. And then he go on to give us a particular word in Hebrew, and the word was lo tisar, meaning you must not marriage any concept to the Most High that is not true. And as I began to study deeper, because I figured that the concept needed more information. It was a good theory, but the theory needs substance. And when you look at the Most High, Yud He Vav He, it is your DNA. And we know that eating equal information transfer. So information, the heavenly bodies which create the season, determine the mineral, and beam them to the earth, right? When the plants are now conveying those information to your DNA. So in truth, every plant is I don't want to use the word, but for lack of a better word, every plant is a pharmacy. So each plant, the blue vervain, zinc, iron, etc. When you consume that, it's going to do something for you because it's a pharmacy. It's already built in. So it's going to impact your DNA. So in essence, what it's saying is that do not put anything in your body that is going to damage your DNA or prevent it from synthesizing, and information about who you are and supposed to be don't get transferred properly. So as we move on from there, if we remember Moses a little bit, he took the people into the wilderness. Now, look at this. The ancient word for Hebrew is ibar. And if you take off the A, you get bar. In Jamaica, everywhere you turn, you see a bar, liquor, which destroys the liver. And the liver does what? Other than filtering blood, etc., and being the chemical laboratory for the body, it picks up spiritual insight from the heavenly bodies to direct your path, put you in touch with the ancestors. Now, the first organ that liquor attack is what? The liver.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now put back the A and ibar. Ibar means those who function from a higher cerebral brain function. Just as you said, you make decision based upon what's right, what's truth, what's holistic, based instead of impulse or what your qualified enemies taught you. Okay. So the ibar people, Moses took the ibar people where? Into the midbar. You see, every word has a root. You see, ibar and midbar have the same root. What is midbar? Wilderness. What is wilderness? In the wilderness is where you find the plants, the herbs, the pharmacy, the real healing substance. So Moses took them into the midbar, which means order also. What is order? For example, so when I go to harvest herbs, I would notice like 3 plants growing side by side. And they have particular blossoms. The blossom now tell you the mineral. The plant relationship tells you the part of the body that they work on. So Moses took them into the wilderness to cleanse them, but also to reconnect them back to nature. And it's the same thing in contemporary time with our brothers and sisters, African American, Afro-Jamaican. We need to go back to that wilderness, that order, that nature experience as Ibar people, going back to the midbar to be resuscitated, Mm-hmm. And if you remember, the people were, this is Numbers 21, the people were complaining, about Moses brought us here to die, because there's no McDonald's no Crackdonald's or Murder King in these places.
Right.
It's the same thing like us today. So Moses, it says the people realized they messed up and say, you know what, we're going to submit, and if we submit, help us win. And it goes on to say that, Moses put a snake on a pole, and the pole, if the snake bit the people, they live. But what is that talking about? That's talking about activating your 7 chakras, your kundalini energy, the stuff you do in yoga. But what do you use to do that? Yes, you can use Qigong and yoga, but there's also some plants you can use to move the garbage, you understand, and rebuild the temple, Solomon temple, which is your physical body. And this is part of how I approach, this is the system that I'm reconstructing, how I approach, these things. Of course, there's other factors that I take into consideration when diagnosing, etc.,
Right. And you pull on history, and you're using words Ibar and Midbar. Can you break those down a little bit more for us, for the audience who may not be familiar?
Okay, so that's one of the things, when they take you into a strange land, they take away your language. And truth be told, what does language embody? Everything about you, maths, science, etc. So one of the ancient titles that was given to us in ancient time was Ibar, or Hebrew, but the correct pronunciation is Ibar, right? And as I said earlier, it means those who function from a higher brain function. They deal with truth as opposed to impulse. I'm hungry, I'm going to eat burgers. No, a person who's of an Ibar state of mind don't do that. So in truth, you can't say you are, let's say, a Kemetic or high bar and doing foolishness. You're not representing the essence of that title. It is what you call it. It is a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Ancient African languages, when you are given a name, it is a responsibility. It's a lifestyle. And since we came from the earth, the element of the earth, the wilderness, then it's incumbent upon us, the midbar, to study the order of nature, which in essence is what? Biochemistry. You have to know, that when you look at an herb like skullcap, it relaxes the vagus nerve, the Heleese vibe, it relaxes the bladder. So what? All the tension you holding on to can be released, so you can have proper bowel movement. And a lot of the time when you're not having these proper bowel movement is because you holding on to a lot of stress. And that is the midbar concept, and there have been many ones who come before us that preach that, the likes of Dr. Sebi, who always said, go back to the wild, the wilderness, which in essence he was saying midbar, which now substantiate what our forefathers wrote in the scripture, the wild, go into the wild. And so in essence, we need land. We have to have land. We have to cultivate. We can't rely on, what they call, because they know that they can affect us. If they alter the genetics of certain plants, then they can alter us and then control our destiny. So Moses figuratively leaving out of that ancient captivity is in fact saying we have to take our destiny into our hands, in essence.
Yeah. Well, we know that we are that connection to that land, and the connection to that land is very critical. And it's critical for not only the plants, but the mobile plants, sometimes known as human beings, that we have to maintain that connection. And many of us have disconnected. We're no longer apart.
That's right.
We no longer see the value in the land. And I'm learning so much about that. I've been doing science research on different soils and the benefits of the different soils, and how the absence of the life force energy in these soils, the minerals in these soils, is having a negative impact on us. So we see the degeneration of health here in the United States of America as a result of chemical companies coming on board. And these chemical companies are the ones that are controlling now the destiny of this planet. And they're controlling the destiny of your health. So we want to reflect and give. We want to make sure that we recognize that this didn't just happen. This wasn't a natural health outcome that all of a sudden everybody just came down with illness, because that isn't how this played out. This played out with no different than in the times, we're going into the Bible. When we reflect on the Bible and we reflect on the things that have taken place in the Bible, we know that this is of biblical proportion. what it is that we see taking place. It's no different than, Pharaoh saying, let's kill the firstborn.
Absolutely.
That we're seeing that reality play out in front of our face, and they're using a different strategy today. And the strategy might be something of the sort of a vaccination. So the vaccination will accomplish the objective of the Pharaoh of the day.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
your work when you go in and you're talking
Absolutely.
with people about
chemical transfer.
Right, and chemical and energetic. But when you're talking to people there on the island, and I know you're due to be up here soon, so we want to have you in the studio as you journey up this way. We're talking, for those of you who may have just tuned in, we're talking to Rofeh Ben Tsedek, who is a student and a teacher of a science of healing that many of us are unfamiliar with, but is present in our lives every single day. The unfamiliarity with it does not remove the reality of it. It's here. It's just we're not tapping into it. It's kind of like having a radio frequency, and you're trying to find that radio frequency. You're trying to find that station, but you keep missing the number. But it's there, and the energy is being communicated. I support the work of all health education, and I support the work that you're doing, Ben. And tell me about that work. Where do you see yourself going? What do you see yourself doing in the future with regard to health education and just providing people with health support?
Well, in truth, in every generation comes about people like unto yourself who inspire others. Like me, and I'm a fruit of your work. So in essence, the same will continue. You have to go back and assess all of what our forefathers have passed on to us, and we now need to put it into what you call a scientific manual, so we can raise up successive generations of healers. We must have a system, a modality, you understand, to institutionalize, first and foremost to exemplify it, but to institutionalize it so every generation that can be on it, because it's like I give you an example, Doc. When you look in Congo, there are some Jamaicans who have Congolese heritage, just like African Americans as well, and they speak a language known as Ki-Congo, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the word life force, when you look at Congo, it's about cultivating that life force, which sounds very similar to what spiritual science in Jamaica known as.
Hey Ben, I got to jump in right here.
Sound like Kundalini, and it's about moving Kundalini.
Ben, I got to jump in right here because our signal with you is breaking up a bit. I don't know whether there's a change in what is taking place on your end, but we're not getting the good signal that we had on the front end. So we're going to give you a second to get that cleaned up a bit. We're talking to Rofeh Ben Tsedek. He's on the island of Jamaica, basking in the sun with his feet, in the ocean, the Caribbean Ocean, as he's enjoying all the blessings and benefits of being there close to the equator and close to that knowledge center. For many of us here in the United States, we've grown so accustomed to the information that we're getting now, being unauthentic, being laced with a virus, being disingenuous, being wrong, being a lie, being deceptive, And it's no different than what we were talking about on the show yesterday with regard to vaccines. We're seeing this information being destroyed. And as you destroy the information, you destroy the people's capacity to tap back into the source of their strength, the source of themselves, their creator, their true culture. And part of our culture was, you don't have culture without health. And what Rofeh Ben Tsedek is sharing with us is the culture of health and wellness that we see that is still vibrant and still moving and is still empowering the people there on the island. Ben, we're coming back to you. Are you there with us? Ben, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Can you?
Okay, it's coming in a little better. Go ahead. You were in the middle of saying some things. I was just kind of reminding people and letting those who are tuning in just now know who it is that we have on the wire and what it is that you're sharing with us. Go ahead.
Okay. What I was saying is that I had a discussion with Dr. Love, and he's a medical Qigong practitioner, and he was saying that did you know that a lot of African dances is Qigong, but he said what happened is that a lot of those who could explain it in this context, they were killed. They were removed, right? They were removed so the information won't be able to transfer in generations to come. So in my research here in Jamaica, I discovered who speak a language known as Qigong. Congo, right, which sound like Qigong, and Kumina, which is it allows you to get in touch with ancestral heritage. What it does, it gives access to your DNA. Of course, parts of it that I don't support, but when I look at it, I can see the connection between it and Qigong. But guess what? Many of the practitioners of it, they're obese. They consume liquor and other things, so they have add things that are not in harmony with good health to these sciences. So we in this generation now must be the generation that bring about the correction, that align such a system back with its original intent as a healing mechanism. So as you said earlier, it's already here, but we're not aware. You know what I'm saying? We're not, when you say optimizing the full potential of what we already have.
Right.
We need to become consciously aware and purposeful in its implementation. Right.
Absolutely. And I think that's across the board. We need to revisit that conversation across the board. And that's with everything. But specifically in the realm of health and wellness, you have a system that you didn't create, but a system that you've tapped back into.
Absolutely.
And an energy science and a chemical science and a bioscience that you've tapped back into, that you are now, you're actually, it's like alchemy. You're bringing different pieces together and producing an understanding that is helping people get well on the island. Now, tell us about that. What is it that you're doing for the people there on the island?
Well, first and foremost, give you right now, presently, I carry people through detox.
Okay.
And weight loss, detox, reversing, diabetes, etc. And one of the things within the realm of alchemy is this. Let's take, for instance, I go into a particular area, and let's say one of your clients is obese, right? Yeah. And right away, what does that convey to the body? That what governs the waterway in the body, they call it the triple burner. It is blocked. It's not functioning properly. And the mineral that ignites the triple burner is silica, right? And what you find that when you have sufficient silica in the body, then you start to sweat much better. You start to what you call it, perspire. It's almost like the plants that contain it is almost like a diuretic, right? And what it does, as in the system, when you read the Bible, it says a mist came up and watered the face of the ground. Now the ground in Hebrew, Adamah, is actually not the physical ground, but it's referring to your kidney. It's referring to what they call the lower dantian. It's referring to your reproductive area. It's referring to your key, your stomach, in those areas. It's referring to the digestive system. So a person who is obese, they're having poor digestion. They're not able to get the nutrients from the food. They're not, what you call it, they're not digesting water properly. So it leads to a build-up in the system. So once we see things like that, then we know we have to draw for plants that are high in silica, that is going to ignite back that digestive fire. Yeah. You know? So we're able to go into the wild and identify the plants, and oftentimes these plants carry a particular color. Light green, purple blossom, Rofeh or steel. You know, you have another herb in Jamaica. I don't remember the name of it, but if you consume just 2 leaves of that, if you have a swelling, you know, edema, it will get rid of it in days. It all depends on how fast your system responds. So those are some of the approach that I'm using to help individuals, you know. Okay.
Now, you know, that might work. That might work, and it might be reasonably received there on the island because you're of the island. You're on the island, and people respect you, and people recognize the work that you've done. But you know, when you first start introducing that to people who have adapted and adopted the modern medical and pharmaceutical drug idea of what it is that we need to do to get well, you know, what is the response, and if that response is, you know, is a negative, how do you bring them to the point of embracing this ancient science, which many of them perceive to be a new science, and not even a science, but sometimes, you know, not valid?
Okay. In terms of introducing it, I find it people accept it well because I bring it in a scientific way. I tied it into their daily lifestyle and things that they do, but also when they take these herbs, you feel it instantly because of the electrical nature of the herbs. They have an affinity to the body, so they work instantly, and they're able to feel it, and they're like, "Wow, this is real! Oh my God!" So, for instance, you know, we have a plant here that we use. You know about it. We use to make the colon, the cell cleanser, the colon cleanser. And when they take it, I said, "No, when you go in the bathroom, you're gonna look for mucus, some ugly mucus." And they take pictures, they see it, they're like, "Oh my God, that was really inside of me." So in essence, they get immediate results. They see the herbs in motion. They feel it, they can experience it, they experience the energy because they're now putting in substance, things that have an affinity to their body. So it comes across very well.
Great.
Because remember, you know, with pharmaceutical drugs, people are convinced that, yes, it works fast, so herbs are slow. Okay, well, that's why we are biochemists. We are biochemists. We're going to put together the right herb in the right proportion to get that immediate response. Right. So you can have that same confidence in the herbs just like you have in pharmaceutical drugs in terms of the response time.
Yeah. And you know, I as I'm speaking to you, Rofeh Ben Tsedek, and we're talking about healing. You mentioned electricity, and that, you know, brings to mind a great brother who's no longer with us, Brother Sabi, Dr. Sabi. And, you know, give me some thoughts on your feelings with regard to Dr. Sabi and the science and the work that he was doing.
Well, you know, the last time I spoke to Sabi, he was lecturing in Jamaica, and this is what I said to him. I said, "Dr. Sabi, you said that carbon is what determines our you, and we as black people have the highest amount of carbon." I said, "Well, did you know that the name that we use to refer to the Creator in the Bible, which people in Jamaica, they say Jah, You understand? In Hebrew you say Yah. I said the numerical value of that word is 6. And the numerical value of carbon in terms of the periodic chart of element is also 6. And what does that tell you? That it's saying that this blackness, this carbon, is the chemical element of life, and that you have to continue to nourish this electrical component with you, this God in you, through electrical plants, which now force you to now look at the Bible in a new light, to realize that what you're reading is really conveying to you science, biochemistry. And he was at awe initially, you know. So what I realized is that now I take everything that Sabi teach and I plugged it into the Hebrew or the Ibarim system. And I realized that, oh my God, it is this system that he has brought to the forefront. He may not have known these connections that God is 6, carbon is 6, and carbon is the chemical element of life. So what God is telling you, Yah is telling you everything comes out of blackness, carbon, this blackness, these plants that have these high carbon content possess the information to sustain life. You know, so I realized that everything that he brought forth was in line with these teachings, these Ibarim teachings. So it's nothing new. He's just resurrecting what was before him. I'll give you another example. A lot of the formation that Dr. Sabi put together, you can find them in the Bible. When you look at when they were building the Ark of the Covenant, and they mention certain colors to you in the Ark of the Covenant, right? If you look carefully, you have colors like red, purple, and if you look at Sabi's compound and you look at some of the herbs in them, they bear the same colors as each of the compound. Every compound carry a particular blossom in terms of the herbs in there, and you can see how they align with the colors that used to describe how to build the ark, how to build the temple. You know, so again you see here that what he really was, he was an ancient priest. He was a Kohan, which means one who stand as a foundation and assist in unlocking the people's DNA so they can grow and become the best that they can be. And the funny thing is that when you look at the priesthood, who started the priesthood in the Bible? His name was Haharon. Well, it's from the word Haharon you get iron. What is Sabi's message? He said the most critical mineral to what? A carbon body, a Yah body, is what? Iron. Because iron being the most electrical, the most magnetic, pulls all other iron, all other minerals to it. And it is iron that what? Take the chi, the chi as he said in Hebrew or Chinese, take the chi from the oxygen and carry that to create friction between the pineal gland, which is carbon, and the cerebral cortex, which is copper. And the friction between the two create electricity in the body. And he said that's why it's the most essential mineral. So when you look at Aaron, who started the priesthood, you see the same word, iron. The priests are essential throughout African culture. So the priest then would what? The priest would focus on what? Administering high iron plants to what? The children as they develop. And that is what Sabi pushed. The iron plants, the sarsaparilla, the Cheney root, and guess what? They grow here in Jamaica. They grow in Belize. All the places that we were dispersed. So in truth, we've been through hard times. But when you look in Jamaica, our people inherit lots of land. So we have to make a connection with our African American brothers and Jamaica. We're cousins. We're family. We have the resources, but guess what? We lost the knowledge of the land, so we don't value the land. So you have a lot of Jamaicans living in America. They have land, and they don't value it. Some don't want to come back here because they have been convinced that concrete jungle is the way to go, as opposed to realizing the wealth in the land and the purpose it serves in terms of maintaining good health. So Dr. Sabi, ancient priest, he resurrected our ancient system, and the reality is that we must not stop at what he brought. We must build on it because it's in alignment with our ancient. He kept using this word, the cosmic procession of life. And the cosmic procession of life, as one of my mentors in Jamaica tell me, he said, listen, Ben, you have 12 tribes of Israel, 12 zodiac. right? He said these planetary bodies, these zodiac, they make the minerals. They determine the season. The season change every 3 months. He said these celestial government know what the Bible referred to as Yahweh Sivaoth, or the Lord of armies. These planetary bodies, these living force, these living electrical component, they create the minerals. They determine the season. So if you are born in December, the next 2 months preceding that, there are 3 minerals that rules you. And when they are deficient, it affects your health. So you have to realize that now winter is coming. We're moving into October. The body needs a lot of sodium phosphate. It needs a lot of calcium sulfate and a lot of silica, which, you understand, neutralize acidity, strengthen the kidney, remove acidity, and keep the silica, keep the body warm. And the calcium sulfate remove the dead tissues so that your chi and your life force can flow. See, this is what Sabi was talking about, the cosmic procession of life. And we are out of tune. We have to, as he said, there's a compromise. We are in a deficit. And I was like, man, he's making sense. He's making sense. So we have to just build on it, because it's not his, it's ours.
You know, it's funny.
He is what?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, it's funny.
I was saying.
That. It's funny that you say that, because that was what Dr. Sabi would always say. He would always say, "This, I didn't do this. You know, I didn't find this. This is our information. You know,
That's
this
right.
is ours." And he would always make that reference, and he would always bring that to our attention. And I thought that was very intelligent, because it made us all now able to embrace a science and a technology and an energy that truly was ours. But we no
Absolutely.
longer were waiting on Dr. Sabi to come back through our city to do a lecture, recognizing then that we had the capacity to activate this energy in between the time
Exactly.
that he comes into the
Exactly.
city, so that when he came back next time, we were at a whole nother vibrational frequency. So go ahead, you were saying something.
Absolutely. And remember, it was you who introduced me to Dr. Sabi at 17 years old. And I took those herbs, and you all sponsored me to come to Jamaica to bring my mother back on her feet. And it worked. You know, and I've always said, I'm not going to wait for Dr. Sabi to heal me. I must know this.
Yes.
It's not unique to him. You know, I must know these things. Another example I give you, Doc, you know, a lot of time we condemn people, you know, and realizing that each of Sabi products work on the different bodies in terms of etheric body, the spirit body. I realized that, yes, for example, the Viento work on your spirit body. It puts you in touch with spiritual revelation, open up your crown chakra.
Now, when you
I'm
say,
like,
when
man,
you say
this is
Vienta,
deep science.
when you say Vienta, help our
Yes.
audience out. Vienta is what?
The Viento is a product that he used to send high oxygen throughout the body, the lymphatic system, relaxes the central nervous system. It also kill pathogens. It stimulates the triple burner. It gives you energy. But what I found that it opened up the crown chakra. And it put you in touch. When you open the crown, it put you in touch with spiritual ancestral information, revelation. You understand? Your DNA can communicate better with you, right? And so when we kind of missed my chain of thought there, but
You're talking about the Vienta. And the,
Yes.
And the Viento is one of Dr. Sabi's products, and I remember it had to be 10, maybe 15 years ago that I heard him speaking of this product, and it was a client of mine that Dr. Sabi was helping me with, and he had MS, and he started taking this
Yes.
product, and he got miraculous results as a result of taking that. And
Exactly.
you know, so
exactly.
what is,
So you realize. What you realize is that disease, yes, you can, it's what you eat, but what you think can also cause health issues. So you have to also not just work on the physical. The herbs, yes, will impact the spiritual, but the patient must become, as well as the practitioner, must be aware of helping that person address the spirit. The herb will help, but they have to become consciously aware that, why am I always angry? And be conscious in their mind, listen, I'm going to challenge this. I'm going to be disciplined with my herb, and I'm going to do these exercises to aid the process. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to address the spirit body, the etheric body, you know, the soul body. That's what the herbs also does. You understand? So he was covering the whole spectrum, but it needs, a lot of people weren't aware of that. He gave us so much, but we must now realize what it was really doing and build on it. Because I give you one example, Doc. There's a one of our sacred warrior in Jamaica. Her name was Nani, and they in fact said she practiced what is known as karamat, which is a Hebrew and Islamic word. They said that she was such a devotee that she was granted karamat, which is mentioned in Numbers 21. Karamat, which is the universe, the creator gave you powers over the element. You could call on the ancestors, the angelic forces, to assist you in battle. And she used a lot of herbs and plant. But here's the connection now. With oh man, I keep missing my chain of thought. I know it now. They said Nani used a particular herb known as spirit weed. And spirit weed is one of the herbs in Dr. Sebi's, is what, if not the chief herb in the Viento. And what the spirit weed does, it puts you in touch with that higher realm. It also protects what the Chinese call the Wiki, which is your the energy fields around you that protects your immunity. It does that. It stimulates the triple burner. It protects you from negative thoughts and forces being targeted, being sent at you. But it opens you up to higher realms, you know. And that is what they said Nani used. And then when I checked Sebi product, I was like, he using the same plant. And in fact, guess what Viento means? It means wind, spirit, ruach. In Hebrew, that product would be called Nefesh Kayai. It is Nefesh Kayai is not a word. It's not just something you read in Genesis. It is a product. It is a herbal compound. You're a living soul. It enlevens the body, and that's how he described it. And spirit weed, we call it spirit weed. The Chinese said whenever a virus or pathogen attacks the body, it is called evil wind. You see the connection?
Yeah.
So the Jamaica call it spirit weed, Sebi call it wind, which is spirit. The Chinese call it evil wind. Another word we use in Jamaica, we said duppy or ghost, a negative force coming at you, be it a pathogens or other means, be it radioactive frequency being sent at you. It will protect you from that also. So this is high science, you know.
Yeah.
And Marcus Garvey said, very importantly, you know, I must make this connection between African Americans and Jamaica, because when you look in the Western Hemisphere, the two most powerful set of people in terms of making things happen were born out of these two, and I'm not being biased. But if you think of Minister Farrakhan, Colin Powell, I just use him for the namesake, Garvey, Booker T. Washington inspired Garvey. And there's always this relationship between Jamaica and Africa. We always inspire each other. And I'm saying now it's time now to heighten. And Sebi has Jamaican heritage too. We need to strengthen that relationship, because there's something in the gene pool that will help take us to the next realm, you know? And saying that to say, Marcus Garvey said this, which connect to the Genesis, when the Genesis says, be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth, which mean what? Master the sciences, let it become your culture. Garvey said we must become a race of scientists par excellence. We must create a race of scientists par excellence. That is the only way we will overcome the evil design of this material civilization. That's what Sebi was doing.
Yeah. Science,
biochemistry. He said it the other day before he passed. He said, I only started healing when I started doing biochemistry, man.
Right.
There you go.
Right. And that's exactly the processes that take place inside of the body, the biochemical, again, and bioenergy. And, you know, so you're tapping into, you know, a wealth of knowledge in Dr. Sebi and experience that has given a lot of people hope. It's given a lot of people. It's given a lot of people a reason to believe that they can live. And we know the challenges that he faced there in New York City when he was incarcerated, and they told him that he was practicing medicine without a license. Well, he said, well, you know, what do you say to these 100 so people that are here in the courtroom who the medical world had said there's nothing we can do for you? And with Dr. Sebi's, you know, science, with Dr. Sebi's alkaline diet, with Dr. Sebi's understanding of electricity, was able to get these people's health back restored again. You know, you can't deny, you know, when the judge sitting up at the bench, you can't deny the evidence. When the evidence is sitting in front of you, you say, well, I don't know how we're going to do this, because you can't practice medicine without a medical license in America, but you healing people. So we're gonna throw this out and figure out how we can we can rein you in another way. But Dr. Sebi is definitely a missed brother and a missed spirit, and we will continue and forever keep him alive amongst us. We're talking today with... Go ahead.
And another thing too, you know, I realized, Dr. Baruch, you know, every Hebrew letter is connected to a mineral. It's connected to a number. It's connected to the periodic chart. So in saying that, no, we also give respect to Sebi's teacher, one of his inspiration, Elijah Muhammad, because now Elijah Muhammad introduced us to what you call Ibarim Islamic teaching. It's the same concept, but if you study Arabic, you realize that Arabic is a scientific, medical, ancient technology too. The language possesses lots of secrets. If you go into the Metuneta, secrets. It's all chemistry. If you go into the Hebrew, secrets. So we give thanks to Ben Ami, we give thanks to Elijah Muhammad, Rahul Nefir, because what they brought, forget the doctrine. Let's focus on, they introduce us to, not forget the doctrine, but let's focus on the source of the doctrine. The source of the doctrine is the language. It's the science. And oftentimes we get caught up in the religious component and not giving the people the metaphysics, the biochemistry in the language. Once you do that, then you empower people now to discover things that you, the master teacher, did not see. And then to resurrect and create expansionary forces like eLife Media, eLife Health Food Stores, Dr. Baruch, etc.
Yes, indeed, brother. Well, I know you're working on some things down there. You have a healing center there in Jamaica as well. Is that correct?
For now, I am going to the States to, I kind of put it on pause. I am going to do a few more courses in certain Eastern technology to combine with what I already know, you know, before I really now, you know, officially launch the healing center.
And you're also working on a product line. When are you due to launch your product line?
I will launch the product line officially in another year or so.
All right, great. And what can we expect from that product line?
What we can expect from the product line are products that repairs the spirit body and the physical body. You know, in realizing that, you know, that when you see particular behaviors in our people, you know, for example, you know, there's a herb here that open up your heart chakra. It make you kind, loving, caring. If you had issues with your mom, your wife, it can correct that. So you can expect that products like this coming forward to help heal the emotional scars, the things of the past, so you can go forward as a free person and be who you are, as opposed to having these blockages, or these baggages, as Erykah Badu would say.
Right. We're talking to Rofeh Ben Tsedek out of Jamaica, who is a healer, a teacher, and a scientific researcher in the realm of biochemistry and bioenergetics. And we are inspired by your teaching. We're inspired by the information you've shared with us thus far, Brother Ben. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share with our audience any closing remarks that you might have that might, you know, impress upon them the significance of the work that you're doing and the significance of the work that they need to do individually.
Well, in closing, I must say I love DC. I grew up there, and DC have taught me a lot. And what I want to see here, when I returned to Jamaica, I only felt connected to Jamaica when I connected to the land. Until you connect to the land in understanding the biochemistry of the land, the soil types and all of that, you won't reap the reward. And I'm saying that those who born in the States, those who born in Jamaica, each space give us a level of experiences that we need to share. Because this is not about Dr. Baruch. This is not just about Ben. We now must move collective.
Right.
You understand? Brothers and sisters in the States must know that, man, there's hundreds of thousands of land sitting idle here in Jamaica. You are a tropical person. You are sunlight. You are carbon. You can now start looking outside of the States and purchase these lands. So you can have access to these healing modalities, the healing on these lands. So you must expand your horizon.
Okay.
That you must have land. You must have land.
Let's jump in that conversation a bit, Ben. Now, what about citizenship? What can an African American expect when he comes to Jamaica and to possibly purchase land and to acquire citizenship? Are those realities, that take of course, work, but not the significant level of, oh my God, the red tape and the government bureaucracy and the cost, and is this a simple process?
I would say it's a simple process in that just once you demonstrate what you the plan you have in terms of what you're trying to contribute to the country, and you make the right inroads or connections, it's not complicated. The present government that we have, they are pro-business, they are pro-economic development, and business is energy, it's all frequency. So if you come in with a good plan, there are ways in which you can, certain things can be relaxed for you to gain the necessary status.
Sure. Because
you are contributing to the development of the people in the country, and that should be first and foremost.
Right. Okay. Well, I again have enjoyed my conversation with you. We're talking to a young man who has journeyed to Jamaica to not only find his familial roots, but finding his spiritual and his purpose. And we're talking to a gentleman who many of you who are familiar with Everlasting Life have seen him down on George Avenue when we used to have our business there. We're talking to Rofeh Ben Tsedek, a raw food chef. You've seen his videos and you've heard his commentary or read his commentary on his Facebook page. He's an herbalist, and he's representing the medical abarim, a system of healing that is ancient, but is current in the sense that we can tap into that healing system in order to get well even today. Ben, tell us how we get in contact with you for those of us in the audience who might want to reach you.
Okay, you can reach me. First, let me get my email address. That is BENTSEDEK55 at Gmail. I repeat, BENTSEDEK55 at gmail.com. I can also be reached at 1-876-277-2812.
Say that again. The number?
1-876. Okay, yeah, 1-876 277-2812.
One more time, it broke up.
Okay, all right. 1-876 277-2812.
Great. Brother Ben, Rofeh Ben, we appreciate you coming on board, and when you come into town, we look forward to having you here in the studio so we can talk face to face and chop it up a bit as we are, migrating and moving forward the agenda of health and wellness through Everlasting Life and the eLife Restaurant Group. So, make sure you get in contact with us before you head this way so we can be prepared to receive you. I appreciate you, and we're very thankful that you came on today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Great.
And big up to DC.
Great. That's what's up.
DC, Maryland, VA,
Yes,
and
sir.
wherever our people are.
Yes, sir. Again, we thank you, and we look forward to more great programming, and you should look forward to more great programming here on the eLife Media Network. This has been the Health Literacy Show with Dr. Baruch and Sister Heleese. You all stay tuned for really good programming here on our network. We're going to be right back in just a moment.